everybody is a Jyotishi right now. Everybody is thinking what's going to happen. But what I want to do is to be able to also look at how this is going to change the way that we as teachers are going to be, and how it is going to change the way students are going to be. So this is going to be a little different compared to the normal, that what's going to happen, we'll go online, we'll do this, although those things will come. So let's first think about this in this way, that at present about 1.5 billion students are sitting at home and trying to do something online. In many of the advanced countries, the backbone for online education is already there, so they are safer, like in the United States. But in countries like India, where the backbone for online education did not exist, so we are doing web classes instead of face-to-face classes, and we call it online education. So it's okay. We had to do something. But let's look at this in a different perspective. The speed at which the shutdown was hit on us, with just a gap of 3 hours from the time that it was announced to the time that the shutdown really started. It did not give us any time really to plan or reflect back on the risk that is there to shift to online, nor we were able to gauge the opportunities that could be there in this kind of a shift in education. It was too abrupt, too fast. And so nobody understood what's happening and how to deal with it. So every entity in the country is trying to look at it in isolation as to what's going to happen to us. And I think that's what educational institutions are also trying to do, is to evaluate the impact that is going to have on educational institutions. But at the same time, we are trying to disassociate ourselves from the society and looking at it independently. Unfortunately, that may be the wrong way to look at it. We are actually the part of society, and we cannot, especially educational institutions, cannot look at themselves in isolation from society. So we have to somehow begin to look at our role within the new evolution that society will have to go through, and that will define a lot of what's going to happen. So what happened was that if you look at it right now, from what we were used to as an educational institution, as a university or an institution, we had a way that we used to teach. And all of a sudden, that whole model has been shattered. The whole ecosystem of education and its delivery has been almost destroyed now, because we don't have any possibility of being with the students. So obviously that model is gone, and we had to shift to a new model of online learning, or what we also call online learning. A lot of problems with online learning. We have preschool children doing online learning. The problem is, do preschool students need to go online? Or should they be allowed to just have fun? We have never evaluated this risk. Till before this, we were saying, keep your phones away from children. Keep your laptops away from children. Now, all of a sudden, we are giving them everything without any restrictions. So what I'm trying to say is that we did not get the time to do all these things, and we have taken things as they are. So what does the online system really do? It creates a very docile group of students, because there is no emotional connect between the teachers and the students. So online learning makes them dull, makes them very docile. It's a one-way process of hearing. And I will talk a little bit more as to how this shift is going to happen over a period of time and how we will have to retrain ourselves. So my idea is that about close to about 30 minutes I'm going to talk, and then I want to open it up for questions and hopefully be able to answer the questions that people may have. So if you, as you have your questions, you can please keep on writing and we will try and come to that. So that's the background with which we now what I want to do is to give you some thought that what happened and what we will have to do. As I said, that the whole ecosystem of our educational system has been damaged, it has been destroyed. It does not look like we'll be able to get back to that in that form. So therefore, we will have to redefine the ecosystem now. A new model will have to emerge. We may not be very clear as to what that new model is going to be, but it is not going to be the old model. That's for sure now. So obviously we'll have to rebuild that model, whatever we are going to use, which means that life is not going to be the same. It certainly is going to change, and it will bring out a drastic change. Let's look at some of the things that have happened and that we'll have to redefine. Please remember that all relationships have changed. Relationship between students and teachers has changed. Relationship between other stakeholders, between the parents and the universities, relationship between investors, relationship between owners and administrators and students and faculty, all these relationship between the stakeholders has changed. So one of our objective will be, after we hopefully come to a normal, which we don't know when it's going to be, is to try to rebuild these relationships. And these relationships will have to be built in context of the new model that will emerge, because it's not going to be the same. There will be a new model for teaching, and based on that model, a new set of relationships will be defined. And I'm very, very confident that the role of teachers is going to become even more and more important, both in administration and delivery of new, under the new model. And we'll talk a little more on how or what can teachers do and what can students do to change all these things. So in my view, blended learning will be the way forward. I think institutions will have to invest in technology to create that blended learning model, which in the long run will reduce the cost of delivery. Because there is going to be pressure on the costs. But in the long run, I think if we are able to create a blended learning model where about 20–30% of the learning is done online and the remaining is done on a face-to-face model, we may be able to reduce our costs in the long run, which we should be looking at doing at some point. If we move into that direction, there is one other change that will be required. What kind of faculty do we need then? Let's look at our faculty base right now. Is our faculty ready for blended learning or even online? And let me try and emphasize this, that what we are doing right now is not online learning. Let's not confuse this to online learning. For online learning to happen, we need to have an online learning platform. A base has to be there. So all interaction happens on that platform, and that's not a Zoom, or it's not Google Meets, or any of these. These are only technologies that were designed for meetings and discussions. But it's very difficult to hold online classes in the true sense through these mediums. The online backbone will require that all our curriculum is restructured. And we will need to decide what part of the curriculum is going to be online and what part is going to be face-to-face delivery. The way that we work on curriculum for face-to-face delivery versus online delivery are two different things. They are not the same. What this will do is that in order to translate our learning material from a face-to-face delivery to online delivery, we will have to prepare new material that will go onto the platform. As a result, what will happen is that the quality of our teaching material will become better. Because on a learning platform, the format in which things have to go are going to be very, very different. So the role of teachers now becomes very relevant, because who is going to prepare this? It's the teachers. But we also have to ask that academically they may be good, but technologically are they there to manage such a platform, to be able to respond to the needs of students which drive the platform? I think most of our teachers may have to go through some training on how online learning can be done. And that training is possible. It's not that it's difficult. And I think most of our teachers will be able to do that without any problem that may exist. So, but one thing we know that they have to become very technology savvy as the time comes. So one of the requirements of faculty members, and I think all faculty members who are listening to this should begin to think about that there is no choice. It's either you're going to become technologically savvy or you'll have to perish. It's just like what used to be said about publishing, that either you publish or you perish. I think the same thing will happen in terms of technology. But please remember that technology is only a medium. It's a medium through which we are going to deliver a part of the program. But the context in which we deliver, the academic depth that is going to be in the delivery, the application orientation is all going to come from the brain of the faculty members. Please remember that computers do only what you say. Although artificial intelligence will come into this and begin to take over, but I still believe that artificial intelligence will not go to such an advanced level that it can mimic the brain. So the most important part of the brain, which artificial intelligence has to work very, very hard to come to even 10% of it, is called creativity. Creativity is still up here. And that's what teachers will have to bring in the new system that will emerge. So let me do this. So we talked about rebuilding the relationships. There is also a lot of talk that is also given in terms of uh, social segregation, that is keeping away from each other once we begin to open up. But more than that, I think what we will need is social reconstruction. We would have changed as a society, despite the fact when this is going to happen, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it is, our whole structure of society would have changed. Everybody will have to carry sanitizer. Everybody will have to carry masks, at least till we can come up with a vaccine. So what we need is a social reconstruction. How are we going to deal with each other? What is the role of universities and institutions and teachers in the new setup, in the new type of society that is going to emerge? Is going to be very, very important. I feel within all this, there are two very, very important set of people who will play a very important role. And by identifying these roles, I'm not in any way undermining the role of other stakeholders. All of them are equally important. But two groups which will directly have to bring about a shift is the students and the teachers. Now think of a scenario in which 30% of all your delivery is online and 70% is face-to-face. So is it possible that a student may not be coming every day to the college? That is possible. It is conceivable that a student may not be on the campus every day, because if 30% of the delivery is online, it is possible that he may not be there every day. But more important in the changing scenario is, will our students be ready to move to a system of self-learning? Which is going to be a big challenge. In Western countries, students are self-motivated and driven to learn by themselves. More because most students in college work and pay their fees. And therefore, they are driven to ensure that they get a bang out of every dollar that they pay. So when I used to teach in the United States, I never took attendance in the class. In fact, university never insisted that we should take attendance. But I always had 95% attendance. Are our students ready? Can they go through a system of learning? And I'm sure that a lot of faculty members, when they begin to think about it, they will realize that when you give a 3-page reading for students to do before they come to the class, the chances are very high that 95% of the students are not. So when culturally our students are conditioned to that kind of a system, for us to shift them so fast into a self-driven type of a system where the onus of learning is on them, that's a big challenge. Here, students are used to listening to lectures. So from morning to evening, we are supposed to lecture. It does not matter how much the student has learned. What matters is how much did we teach. And that's where the problem is going to be. When we combine online learning with face-to-face learning, we are also shifting the onus on learning to the student. Remember that I'm using a term called learning. I'm trying to deliberately avoid using the term teaching. Because in the post-COVID scenario, I think we will have to shift gears from teaching to learning. Pooja, in her introduction, did say that IES University uses an outcome-based model. That's good, because if you have an outcome-based model, then the transition from teaching to learning is going to be very, very easy. And here's what we can do, and I'm trying to suggest this to the teachers to begin to think about this. When we transition from learning post-COVID situation in a new model that is going to get created, I think it will be time for us to shift from the method of teaching, which is the lecture, to a different format, which is experience-based. And it's going to be possible, because it's almost going to be a new system. And therefore, it's easy for us to evolve. What I'm proposing, and I want you to think about, is what we call as a principle of 20, 30, and 50. What this means is that only 20% of the learning of a student should come from hearing. 30% should come from visualization or seeing, and 50% should come from experiencing, doing things. That's a model that uses all senses of body in the learning process. So we don't need to memorize anything. Students have to go through a system of understanding. And that's important. That once students understand the material, they don't need to memorize. What that will also mean is that the way we are going to assess students is going to take a dramatic shift. And the questions will have to be very applied. Please remember that we said outcome-based learning. Now, let me pose this question for all the teachers to think about. When you have an outcome-based learning, and when you set your question papers, do you ever look at the questions and say, which learning outcome is this question testing? The problem is we don't. So if your assessment is not structured in such a way that it is able to assess the learning outcome that has been defined, then the assessment is not right. Because if you define the learning outcomes of a course, you have to assess students on those learning outcomes. So for example, in a course, you say that a student should be able to apply statistical tests to different business conditions. And you don't assess students on any of those learning outcomes. Then we don't know whether the student has achieved the learning outcome or not. So which means that our assessments will have to go through a major structural shift. So here are things that we will have to remove from our assessment. 3, 4 words that we'll have to get out, discuss, explain. We ask this question, right? Discuss Newton's third law. What are we, when we ask that question, discuss Newton's third law, what are we asking? We are asking the student to write what he has memorized. Okay. But in the new format of assessment, if we have to say that, okay, Newton's third law is every action has an equal and opposite reaction, then we need to maybe rephrase the question in such a way that if you were to kick a football against a wall at this speed, at this angle, and if this is the outcome, then how does this whole process be explained by any of Newton's laws? Now, in this case, it's an application-based question. So the student cannot memorize and write an answer. Similarly, when we say explain something, again you are asking about memorization. It's the ability to cram things. But if you change the format in which you ask your questions, which will be in the post-COVID era, which we will have to do. If you were to give a statement, let's say 4-line statement, and say, I want you to critically evaluate the statement. So what is critical evaluation? First thing what we are trying to tell the student is that I don't want you to tell me whether you agree with this. I want you to write a critical note on this. What are the flaws that you find in this statement that contradict reality or contradict the status quo? So the nature and the format of questions change. Are we going to have open book exams post-COVID? Yes. What is the problem with open book exams? Or what is the problem with take-home exams? Nothing. The only problem is we don't know how to set those questions. I've given open book exams, I've given take-home exams to students. And after the first exam, they have always said, please, sir, we don't want to. Or we don't want to take home. Because they're very difficult. A student has to actually do a lot of work and a lot of thinking because there is no straight answer to those questions. They are all your thoughts based on research that you have to sit in the library and do. Unfortunately, in our system, we don't allow students to do these kind of things. We don't give them time to think. And I think this shift that is going to take place in our education delivery system, which is going to shift a lot of responsibilities of learning onto the students, will give a lot of time for students to reflect and think. We all as teachers and students have heard of reflective thinking. We all know it's good, but we don't do it. Do we talk about it? Yes, we talk about it. Why do we talk about it? Because it's good to talk about it. Sounds good. So, those are the changes that students will have to go through. But then there are teachers who have to go through more different changes that will come. I said if we have to make education applied, which I think every university should take the opportunity right now to start shifting gears and moving in that direction. At least 50% of what we deliver to them has to be based on an experience. So let me ask this question to all the students. If they're students, they will evaluate this from a point of view of students, and if they're teachers, they will evaluate from the point of view of teachers. So there is a course that we are teaching for MBA students, which is called Sales and Marketing. Sales and Distribution, or a course like Advertising. So let's take Advertising and Sales Promotion for that discussion. We will teach them all theories. But if you ask a student who has completed an MBA and tell him that we want you to design an advertising campaign for a new product, he's tough. Because as part of that course, he was never asked to design an ad for the launch of a new product or for anything. And that's where the change has to come post-COVID. And that's where the pressure is going to come on all institutions to make education more experience-based. When you as a teacher engage students in the learning process, the learning is the maximum. And the level of discipline with which students work is at its peak, because they are involved in that. So I taught a course once called Science, Technology and Society. And that was a class that was not based on lectures. It was based on only discussions. So that course involved content from genetic engineering to designer babies to genetically modified foods, everything. But I did not teach them what genetically modified foods are by sitting inside the class. It was taught by actually going to a place where genetically modified food is grown. They would never forget that, because it is now an imprint on the brain. The course involved students thinking about what would happen if, for example, every street corner has a place where you can get your DNA testing done. Just like blood. So what that means is that we will come to a point where the DNA of everybody, DNA structure, is available to everyone. If that happens, then what happens to the society? And students came up with these. That's why it will be a big problem. Because if I'm an employer, or I'm an insurance company, if I know your DNA structure, I know that you're inclined to have this kind of a disease, I'm not going to provide you insurance. Wow. And we say students can't think. I think that's the kind of education post-COVID that we should be looking for. Make them part of the educational experience. Students come to a university to experience college life. And that's not just the classroom. They must actually have a lot of fun going through an educational experience. They must enjoy. It's a great joy to be on the university campus. Even when I'm learning, I'm enjoying it so much. And that's the kind of learning that will drive the future of higher education. So this is what we call experience-based learning. And many teachers may say, well, how is that possible to do that in a course like philosophy? It's possible. It's very much possible. Once you start thinking of doing it, you will start finding the ways to do it. So it's applicable all across all disciplines. What I'm trying to say is that make them work. Make them use their brains. Their brains are not a recording machine. They are a thinking machine. And that's where our transition as teachers has to take place. Our thinking, our mindsets have to transform to bring about this kind of a revolutionary change in the education system that we are going to promote. Now, let me be very, very honest. This shift will require very hardworking people, especially for the first 1 or 2 years, when the material has to go through a complete shift. But once we have completed that cycle, it will be amazing to be in the class. Begin to think of different ways that you can improve and you can bring about a transition in your teaching learning. As students or faculty members of your university, you have the responsibility to make that place a great place. Remember this, whether you stay there or you leave, that name is going to follow you throughout your life. And that makes it even more important why we should do everything possible to make a positive contribution towards building the university in the post-COVID era. And there will be difficulties. There will be a lot of challenges that will be there. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. But remember that the fun is in doing those things that everyone believes it's very difficult. You have to go with that assumption. You are not born to do easy things. You are born to do difficult things. Don't run from those difficult things. You have to make a positive contribution to your university. You have to bring about a revolutionary change in the way your teaching and learning happens. You have to bring about a change in how you deal with your students, right? And to teachers sometimes, let me tell you this, हम कभी बोलते हैं इनको क्या पढ़ाएंगे सब गधे, ऐसा नहीं है. We have to inspire. Once we inspire them, and that's our role as teachers. In a transformed setup, we need to be very, very inspiring teachers. With no egos, earn the respect of your students, and you will see that you will have students who are just following you all the time. So work on these areas which are going to define how educational institutions are. Please remember that you cannot be a great teacher. And mark this, you cannot be a great teacher unless you are a caring teacher. You need to be a teacher from your heart. You need to get into this profession by choice, not by default. And once you are there, give your best, because you are going to change the destiny of this country. There is no bigger job than training the future generation to take the country to a different level. That's the kind of role that we as teachers will have to play in the post-COVID era that is going to come. There will be pressures of all types. There will be financial pressures. There will be all sorts of problems. Don't run. Because remember, wherever you go, you will have the same problems. So my advice always is, don't run from yourself. Stay, hang on, make changes. Don't be in a rush. Some things you will change in 2 months, some things will change in 6 months, things will change in 2 years. But as long as we all have hope, as long as we have the drive, as long as we have the determination, and as long as we have an ambition to create a great university, a great institution, we will be successful. Keep your students at the center of everything. Please remember that if you remove the students from there, they're all buildings. Right? And that's the reason I keep saying it's very easy to build an institute. It's very difficult to build an institution. And institutions are built by teachers. It's teachers and students who build institutions. So there is too much on your shoulder in this transformed system that is going to come post-COVID. I didn't want to spend too much time talking to you about what is being talked everywhere, that post-COVID, what's going to happen, and online will happen, and this will happen. Well, let's try to be realistic. Let's try and see if we can bring about some substantial change. Because here is an opportunity for us to start from scratch, which does not happen. So we are blessed that here is an opportunity. Yes, there were a lot of risks, but there is an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves, redesign our programs, restructure our delivery. And that's what makes a great place to study. So those are my views in terms of what we are going to be seeing, in terms of how society is going to transform, how institutions will transform, what is the changing role of students and how they have to transition to a different system, and what is the role of teachers in redefining how education will happen. Now, I've given a lot of thought on these issues. And I believe these things will happen. It is for you to decide whether you want to be instrumental in driving this change, or change is going to be thrust on you at some point. I believe that it is always good that we carve a new path and let others follow. So having this as a background, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, which we can discuss. Kishorji? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, Kishore.
Sir, I just want to know that how to change the mindset of the students, because it is one of the most major. Suppose we change all the scenarios, we move to the online platform, but
Yeah.
at the end side, what we have to do to that make more interactive with the
Okay.
students.
Okay. I think the first thing that we need to do is to change the mindset of the faculty members. I think that's where the shift has to happen first. Students are like amoeba. They adjust to different situations. Uh, I think what we need to do is to help the faculty understand the new concept first. Uh, they need to forget that they are faculty. They are not faculty anymore. They are just facilitators in the learning process. Because when you shift from teaching to learning, this is the first major shift that has to come. That in a learning system, everybody is a learner, including the faculty member. There are some who are at the basic level of learning and some who are at the advanced level of learning. And everybody is learning from each other together. So it is possible that in this kind of a scenario, there could be a student who can stand up and ask me a question as I'm a facilitator that I may not have an answer to. And that is very much possible in today's scenario with the amount of information that is available to students on their mobiles that I might have not seen it. He has seen it and he pops up with a question and I don't have an answer. There are two ways to deal with this kind of situation. And I'm sure that all faculty members know about this. One way is that I convince him that I know the answer. And as a good communicator, as a teacher, I should be able to convince him that even if I'm giving a wrong answer, it is the right answer. And he will get convinced. That's one, which is very, very damaging. The second is that I tell him, oh, I didn't think about it. How about we finish the class? Let's go and find out. I'm not aware of this. That's an acceptance by the teacher that it's okay. It's okay to ask me a question that I don't have an answer. And let's learn together. Let's find out what the answer is. I think it's the mindset of the teachers that need to be transformed first. Now, the second is that in a learning process, we are all together. We are working together. So there is no system of I'm on this side as a teacher, you are on that side as a student. It may be a round table. It may be a circular system. I have students who may be sitting on a beanbag. That's fine. So many times you have to change the thought process itself, that a classroom is a place where there are 60 students sitting and one person talking. It's an interactive process. So one way to teach statistics is to deliver lectures and write formulas. The second way to teach a statistics class is in the first class begin to say, suppose if I ask the class, who has above 90% marks? And there is somebody who raises his hand. And I say, how many students are there from your class in high school, in 12th, in this place? And he says, there are 6 people, 6 of us. They all have different marks. Why? They all went to the same school. They have the same teachers. They have everything. Now, if I let them think about this problem, which is a problem that is related with them, you'll be amazed with the kind of answers they come up because we give them time to think. But we don't. Our system is just keep giving the information. So I think if there is a change in the way teachers are going to look at learning as a process. So a lot of these students are in a learning environment, they are viewed more as an apprentice rather than a student. And that's a change in the mindset that teachers will have to bring. That these are all apprentices with me. And we are working together.
Mishraji,
Yes,
Purswani this side.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
Sir, you rightly said that it's building an institution is really a difficult process.
Yeah.
Now, in the post-COVID era or in the change scenario, where a lot of emphasis will be the online learning,
Yeah.
the major challenge for the faculties will be how to really assess the participation level of the students. In a classroom session, they are able to see and judge the participation of the students. It's basically becomes a two-way communication in the classroom sessions. But in the online sessions, it will be a biggest challenge. And until unless technologies evolve, where the learning management systems come into place, where the as you are asking questions are put up very fast and the answers are given very fast, and both faculties and students rise to these levels. Till that, really, it will be a challenging process. What are your thoughts on this process, sir?
See, I feel that the online learning will not be as high as what we are assuming at this point. The reason for that is, first the regulatory agencies will have to then give us approval to offer degrees online, which is not going to be so easy. So what can happen is that they will say that a certain percentage of your delivery could be online, but you cannot give a degree online. So, for example, if you as a university have to give online degree, then you have to apply for through the regulatory agency, and they will take you through all the process and all this. So, I think 20 to 30% is the max that I'm thinking that the online will be permitted. But even that 20 to 30%, if it is, the question about assessment online is a very challenging one. There is no doubt about it. But now technologies exist that are integrated with the platform, which are able to give you a fair assessment of the work that the student has done. The way that those assessments are a little different. For example, there is a assessment that is based on readings that are done by the student. Certain amount of readings have to be done. Now, all work on those assigned readings that a student does is clocked by the software. The minute the student opens it, it begins to clock his activity, traces his activity. So obviously there are those kind of technologies that are getting built into these kind of online assessments. But I still feel that even though we have some evidence of short answer questions being evaluated online, bulk of the assessment will still happen on a face-to-face format. But maybe the kind of assessment that would be good for online would be what we look at as internal assessments or some assignments that have been given, some reports that have been written, those kind of things, or some multiple choice assessments that are given. Because I personally feel that the structure of our assessments in India is not really not very good. And the reason for that is I always believe that students have different styles of learning and different ways in which they can demonstrate what they have learned. So somebody can be very good at speaking and they can demonstrate their learning by speech. So if we do only a Viva exam, that student has an advantage over the student who is not very good at speaking. Whereas, let's say if there is a student who is very good at writing long answers, if we have all assessments which are based on long answers, then obviously he has an advantage and others have a disadvantage. So our assessments have to be structured in such a way that any student who has an advantage in one of the ways that he demonstrates his learning is completely neutralized between students. Nobody has advantage, nobody has disadvantage. So you have multiple choice, you have report writing, you have got Viva, you have got presentations, you have all forms, so that even if different students are good at different things, they get neutralized. And a lot of those can be done online, and we are getting better and better at doing online assessments. Especially, I think now the drive is going to be much faster because we will start to use artificial intelligence as a mechanism that will get built into these systems, which will make assessment more fair.
I think we can quickly take up one more question, last question before Pooja. We request Pooja to formally thank our guest speaker. Anybody who has one quick question?
Sir, Roshan Sehajpal here, and I have a question. That don't you see that the COVID-19 situation will actually kind of change the business model of the universities, and a new model of distance learning will emerge, wherein we are able to penetrate more into the market and maybe even cater to people or students who are far off. And secondly, maybe we'll have to shift to more of vocational training, and maybe we'll have to altogether rethink about our business model, just in the same way as Ondor has done. There was a time when people used to come to grocery stores, and now we see that they are being catered to right at their doorstep. And similarly, I think will there not be a shift? I mean, what are your views on this, sir?
See, let's look at the online. This one that is it going to. I still don't believe that it's going to be 100% online. It can't be. Our system will not permit that. But remember that online is based on a different model. It's a model based on mass. Okay, because the fee structure that defines online delivery and the fee structure that defines face-to-face delivery are completely different. Now, in an online delivery, you can, for example, Coursera is doing online delivery of a course from Stanford, and it's $40 for that course. But there are 250,000 students who are doing that course. So that business model is based on a volume. But if you have 60 students in MBA, you are doing online, it will not give you the benefit of the technology that you're going to have. You need to have large number. So who can do it online? Indira Gandhi National Open University can do it online. Their correspondence course can shift completely to online because they have 200,000 students, 300,000 students who are taking the different courses. That's possible. Or National Open School, they can go online. Because unless you have mass, this model will not work. Okay, that's my feeling that yes, it will redefine a business model. Definitely. It may also lead to a lot of consolidation. And I'm 100% sure that there will be consolidation in this. But I think the ones that will stay, who remain strong, are going to come up with a blended model, at least for the next couple of years, where we have 70-75% delivery. Because the minute you go to online delivery, the biggest question that is going to be raised, what is the fee that needs to be done for online? Right? If I'm doing it online, I don't need to hire full-time teachers, right? You can ask somebody in Bangalore to deliver an hour of lecture online. My cost is very different in an online model because I don't have faculty on roll. I pay them by the hour. So I think I still feel that the conventional model with little bit of tweaking will be the one that will stay. Hello?
Sir, you need to unmute yourself, sir. Purswani, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra, for an excellent session, for giving us excellent inputs. Thank you very much for joining us. Pooja, may I request you to kindly propose a vote of thanks on behalf of all of us to Dr. Mishra and the participants. Vidya, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It's our great honor to have you here with us, and it's a privilege, to propose the vote of thanks for you. So let me first of all giving glory to the Almighty God for making the session success. And first and foremost, I express sincere gratitude and appreciation to our special guests for giving encouragement and guidance to our students and teachers to accept new normal, that is e-learning, and build strong career in their future. My heartfelt thanks to the Chancellor Sir and Pro-Chancellor Ma'am for non-stop guidance and motivation, support, innovation in organizing and managing education sessions for our students and teachers for grooming. Thanks to our students and teachers for your participation. Last not the least, I thank our IES team for your cooperation and coordination in making the session a resounding success. Thank you to all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kishorji. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.